Okay, so we're here once again in Sword Factory X, and as you might know, there is an update coming soon to the game, possibly today. I'm not really too sure when though. And yeah, there's a lot of new things that will be coming in this new update, and obviously I will have a video or maybe even a stream depending on what time it comes out ready for when that update drops. But yeah, we have our first leak for this update. Now I'm not actually too sure if it will be coming in this update or whether it will be coming in a following update. However, this seems to be something that is going to change the game, as it's actually something new with the whole swords themselves. So if we come up here right now to the ascender real quick, as you can see on our sword, we have our name, obviously, the level, we have the rarity of the sword like supreme, and also the rarity chance of the sword as well. We have the quality, the class, the enchants. We also have the mold, the value, and also who just kind of owns that sword at the specific time as well, which is obviously a lot on a sword. However, it seems like we're actually getting something new to these swords, which could be something that is completely game changing. So as you can see on the screen right now, this is the leak in mention, and as you can see, it's still more or less similar. We have obviously the rarity of the sword, the level, all the usual shebang that we usually have. However, there's two new things that I can actually see on this. One of them being something that says Soulbreaker at the top of the sword, as well as a kill count that's actually on the sword as well, which could be really interesting. So first things we'll go over is the kill count, because obviously that is the more simple thing on this. Obviously the kill count will most likely just count all the kills that you do with that specific sword. Whether this will go over when you actually trade the sword, I'm not really too sure, because obviously if you're killing a lot of bosses, you want to get your kill count as high as you can on one sword, and obviously once it gets traded over, maybe then you can trade the sword for a little bit more because it has more kills on it. I'm not really too sure. But yeah, the kill count is going to be really interesting, and if you can't see it, it's literally just above where the mold is on the bottom right of the sword in like a little red text. So obviously for those people who are into killing bosses and stuff like that, then obviously you'll get a nice little kill count there. And again, as I was mentioning before, maybe when you trade this sword over, the kill count will stay there as well, and instead of it being linked to the person, it'll actually be linked to the sword, which would be really good. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. And obviously for those people who have the best swords and stuff, maybe those best swords, once they get traded around, can get up to things like 1,000 kills, 10,000 kills and things like that, which would be really good to see. Now the next thing on this sword, which is the most interesting thing I think, is where the name used to be. Now obviously the name is still there, it's just smaller on the sword. However, as you can see, there's this whole new thing on it that says Soul Breaker. Now I'm really not too sure what this thing could actually be. There's so many different possibilities that this thing could be. Someone did mention it could be a tier list. However, Editors has said it's not a tier list, so honestly I'm really not too sure what it could be. Maybe it could be something completely new that could be added to the sword, that obviously could be upgraded through the ascender or something, or maybe it's something like a completely new rarity to the sword that's completely random once you get it out of the machine. I'm not really too sure, but yeah, honestly there's so many different possibilities for what this sword could be and for what this whole new Soulbreaker thing is. Now obviously what I can think is it's maybe like these little power-ups that can be added to a sword. So obviously for Soulbreaker, it sounds like something that's going to be kind of pretty vicious, so maybe something that's going to deal more damage, or something that's going to be a little bit more lethal when it comes to killing things maybe, because obviously a Soulbreaker is literally killing someone's soul more or less. So yeah, that is a really cool name as well. Now I'm not really too sure what it means. Obviously again, it could just be a random name that could be added to the swords. Maybe like you can give your sword its own name. Now obviously I have my damage sword over here right now on the left hand side, as you can see, and it obviously doesn't have this whole new system on it yet, but obviously maybe you could just name your sword. So obviously you can type in anything you want. Say you've got a really good damage sword, you might just call it, I don't know, something like powerful sword or something like that. Obviously you could be a bit more inventive than that. Maybe you can just call it Greg and have a sword called Greg. Maybe that's a whole new thing that could be added into the game. But again, another thing is that it's also got this nice little like colour thing, so maybe you can unlock different sort of name tags or like tags for the sword, which just kind of like changed the little bits of colours on this sword. Now obviously the thing that makes me think that it will be a name tag for the sword instead of like a rarity or something completely different is the fact that obviously the name is also in that colour, as well as just like the little owner name that's in the bottom right as well is also in this kind of like nice gradient colour. So I do believe that it's most likely going to be a name tag for your sword, which I do believe a lot of people did want to add. Obviously it's going to be really nice to have like different swords up here called different things. Obviously people can make different jokes as well, like, I don't know, people will make jokes having one word here, another word here and another word here, just to make some really stupid jokes or something, so someone will do that at some point for sure. But yeah, this is going to be really interesting, and this is the first, more or less the first leak that we've had for this brand new update. Now, another thing that I have seen as well in the polls is that two things. One, they seem to be in the mind of fixing boss sniping. So obviously, I wouldn't say this is really a problem because it obviously has been a part of the game since the first sword factory ever. However, obviously people can like use different sorts of tools and stuff to see how old servers is, how old the server is even, without having to actually like look properly. And you can just kind of like go on, see a server's like 9 hours old, and you'll know, oh, that's a quad spawn happening soon. So then people will jump on that really quickly, obviously. So it seems like they are going to try and fix quad spawning or have a boss sniping even. So then obviously people can't snipe bosses, and for those people who have spent the time in the server, can then obviously get the boss without people just coming in for 5 minutes, stealing the boss and then leaving again, because obviously that's really annoying. I know a lot of people do find that quite annoying. However, it is still part of the game, so I'm not really too sure how they will fix it, but we'll have to see. And another thing is that they seem to be wanting to update the combat system. So obviously for right now, we have a fairly basic combat system, obviously where you can just go into a world, you just go up to a boss and then just kind of hit it. So obviously I need to go get my damage sword real quick. I should have probably picked this up before. But yeah, obviously it's a really basic combat system, obviously, because all you need to do is just kind of like teleport to a world. Obviously you kind of just load in, and then obviously boom. I'm not really too sure why it's so laggy though. My boss is literally dying right there. Why is this so laggy? That is crazy. But yeah, obviously, there we go. It's starting to somewhat get back. No, it's not. There we go. It's starting to get back. So obviously we've got a very basic combat system, as you can see, where you just go up, hit a boss, and then that's more or less it. So they might end up adding something completely different, some maybe like some timed events or something. Maybe they'll add some new types of bosses that will do something different, maybe some like speed bosses, some powerful bosses or something like that, which would be really cool as well to see. So yeah, they're going to be updating the combat system at some point. I don't believe this will be in the next update, just because a combat system does take a long time to make. So I'll have to see what happens. But we do seem to be getting some really interesting updates coming to the game, and I do believe as well, on top of this, the next update will be bringing along some more enchants to the game as well, and maybe the molds will be a little bit easier to get, because obviously right now, as you can see, a lot of these molds are very hard, and they're definitely the hardest things in the game to get. As you can see, for the bottom mold list right now for me in my Ascender, it's 1 in 18 quintillion, which is extremely hard to get and more or less impossible to get. And whilst we come over to the quality list real quick, the bottom one for this is 1 in 58 trillion, which is a massive difference, as you can see. And even the rarities are extremely hard to come across, especially these harder ones. But even then, that's only 1 in 263.6 billion, which is nowhere near the mold list. And even for class, again, these are pretty hard to come across. 1 in 56 trillion, again, nowhere near this soul stone at 1 in 18 quintillion. So they should be making that easier as well, which would be really interesting. So yeah, that's a really interesting update, and hopefully we will be seeing that later today. And if it is at a good time, I will be streaming that as well, so make sure you do stick around for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.